Criminologist, crime expert and former police inspector Dr Terry Goldsworthy. Thank you as always for joining us. Let's start with the federal situation there. As Cam just mentioned, potentially the last day in Parliament, a lot to get done, including those social media laws. So they certainly passed the House of Representatives, as we heard, but it's still quite divided, isn't it? What is your take on the social media laws?
Look, I think in principle they're good. I mean, we should be protecting our young people from social media. I mean, I have two teenage children and their phones are glued to their hands. I mean, literally, to get them to get off social media is incredibly hard. I mean, you constantly say, get off it, don't be on there all the time, artificial environment. So if we can limit their uptake of that till they're a bit older, I think that's going to be a good thing because, it can be a quite hard environment to operate in. You need resilience because people are much more caustic and more critical when they don't have to look at you in the face and say things that they perhaps shouldn't say. So I'd like to see the detail on how we're going to verify ages and things like that. But in principle, I think we need to do something to protect and limit the invasion of social media into our young people's lives because it's just almost like an addictive scourge that we have at the moment.
Yeah, you make some really good points there. It's the addiction side, isn't it? And when you think when we didn't have phones, we were able to communicate, but now we do have it. How are you going to fix that? Because they do have so much communication with that platform. But yes, I see you and I hear you with the two teenagers as well. It's very, very difficult, and it is their way of communicating, but interesting, if it does go through even further and how they're going to implement what they're tending to do in the next year or so. But let's move on to adult crime, adult time. Queensland's landmark laws, as you know, are going to be tabled in Parliament today. There's about 12 days to examine the legislation before Parliament returns in Queensland in mid-December. What's your take on this law?
Look, I'll be really interested to see the detail of it. We heard the broad platform during the election from the LNP, and it's part of their Making Queensland Safer package, which contains rehabilitation, diversion, making the courts more accountable and open to the public in their decision-making. And this was kind of their signature piece of legislation. So I think it'll make a difference in terms of murders. If you take the example of Emma Lovell, who was stabbed to death 2 years ago by two youth offenders in the middle of the night when they came into her house. One of them walked free, one of them got 14 years. He's appealing that 14-year sentence. Under these new laws, my understanding is he will get, or he would have got 20 years life imprisonment before he could apply for parole. That's where it'll make a difference. In terms of property offences, I don't think it'll make much difference because no offender gets the maximum sentence essentially for property offences. If you look at stolen cars, youth offenders, 6% got a detention sentence, and of those, the average sentence was 3 months. So you're going to get nowhere near the maximum sentence of 10 years. I don't think it'll make a great difference there. But for murders, it will certainly bite. And people who commit a murder now in Queensland, it doesn't matter what your age is, you're going to get life.
So in terms of the prisons themselves, and we've heard a lot about how people can, potentially learn more about what the wrong thing is to do, so to speak. What is your take on that, and how do we have, in terms of numbers and people in prison, are we overloaded? What's the situation there?
Yeah, look, prison's interesting. At a baseline, the Australian Productivity Commission has done a report on this in 2021, and prison does actually stop crime, despite what many people will tell you. The problem is, though, what happens when those people get out? Have they been rehabilitated, or are they better offenders and go on to be recidivist offenders? So what you do with the person in jail or in detention, or the youth offender in detention, is important in terms of upskilling them so that when they come out of the detention centre, they can be a member of society who's going to contribute rather than detract by committing crime. That's the crucial thing. And I think the LNP government is aware of that, and they are looking at, gold standard rehabilitation programs, things like that. Well, I'll be interested to see what they entail. But you must look at that kind of product that's coming out. Currently in Queensland, our serious repeat offenders, youth offenders, get out with a 72-hour plan as outlined by the Auditor General. Now, that's just a ridiculous notion that you're going to monitor someone for help for 72 hours and then they'll stop offending. In terms of numbers, we have a new detention centre coming online, I think early next year or late this year. It's not much left. I suspect they'll be filled very quickly. What do we do then? I don't know. We'll have to look at where we place these young offenders. And this is because of a strategic failing by the previous Labor government, who had detention as a last resort, so they didn't see the need to have beds for serious repeat offenders. Well, the landscape has now changed in the criminal justice system in Queensland, and we do need somewhere where to put these people.
Another topic which is controversial, pill testing, and we're reading that there's a high alert with a particular drug 1,000 times more potent than morphine. But the LNP is going to scrap the funding for pill testing. I guess there's that argument of somebody's going to purchase something illegal. They get to the point where they're going to go to an official and say, is this okay or not? But no drug is okay. So what's your take on the pill testing and the axing of funding?
Yeah, look, your point there is exactly right, and it's what the pill testers tell you when you sign a legal waiver, so that you can't sue them if you die or have serious injury from taking the pill, is that the only safe thing to do is not to take the drug. It's concerning. There have been a number of medical bodies come out and use the word safe around pill testing. Another medical body came out and said, well, what happens is you get these pills tested, and if they're dangerous, the people don't take them. Well, that almost suggests that if it's just the drug you expect, that's safe to take, and that's totally wrong. That's an erroneous viewpoint to take. If you look at pill testing like a rehabilitation program, say you had property offenders, you put them in a program not to re-offend and commit property offences. We know from the data that about 93% of people who get their pills tested at a festival up in Queensland here beginning of the year went on to keep the drugs. One would assume to take them. So if you have a 93% failure rate in terms of turning around the behaviour you're trying to target, I would see that as a failure in any circumstances. Yet we see the pill testers say, oh, well, 7% got rid of the drugs, but 93% didn't. It simply can't make a drug safe. It gives a perception that it can. They themselves, when you read into the detail on their websites and in the legal waivers, etc., make it very clear that you take a pill after pill testing, that is a high-risk venture, and you face the risk of injury or even death. And they make that very clear to you so that there's no legal repercussions for them.
We've got to wrap it up, but always appreciate your time and expertise. Dr Terry Goldsworthy, take care. Thank you.